What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Unsolved Enigma. You got your boy Aaron here and my lovely wife Nicole, and we got a good one for you. This one was a request from a friend of mine. He wanted us to do something like a national state park, so it took us a little while to dig up some stuff, but we actually found a pretty interesting one. So let's get going.
Okay, so on February 24th, 1978, 5 mentally disabled men from Marysville, California headed to a Chico State basketball game. After the game, the group of 5 disappeared. There was Bill Sterling, who was 29, Jack Hewitt, who was 24, Tom Wire, sorry if I mispronounced that, who was 32, and Jack Madruga, who was 30. All 4 of them were found dead. Gary Mathias is the last one. He was 25 at the time, and he is still missing to this day.
Now, Gary Mathis, he was in the Army, and he was in the early 70s, and he developed a drug problem. I'm not sure how that happened. And then he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and ended up getting a psychiatric discharge. And then I guess they were all like living with their parents and stuff like that. So after his first few episodes after he ended up coming home, they were really bad. But by the 78, he ended up getting treatment with some like doctors, and they were giving him help. Then he was on some new medication, which seemed to turn it around, and he didn't really have that many episodes within 2 years. Then they looked to him to be a success story.
So Sterling and Hewitt were said to have slight intellectual disabilities, and Wire and Madruga, they didn't have anything diagnosed. They were just said to be a little slower. And Madruga was a veteran as well. All 5 men lived with their parents, and they played basketball together for the Gateway Gators, which was a league that was put together by the Special Olympics.
February 25th, the boys were going to play in a game that was sponsored by the Special Olympics, which all of them were looking forward to. And they went to Chico the night before to watch the basketball game against Chico State.
So Madruga drove all of them to the game, which was about an hour north of where they lived, and they were in his 1969 Mercury Montego?
I believe.
Mercury Montego. All of them were dressed in light coats.
Looks good, that's all I know.
All of them were dressed in light coats, no like heavy winter coats or anything, like they were planning to be outdoors for a long time. After they left the game, they stopped at Bears Market in Chico so that they could all get some snacks, some drinks, and some milk around 10 p.m. And this was the last time that they were seen alive.
So the next morning, none of them had returned home. The parents had already alerted police because it was out of the ordinary for them. And it seemed very odd because they were all had the game that they were looking forward to the next day. They had their clothes and stuff laid out. One of the dudes made sure that they had their fresh shoes all cleaned up and stuff like that. Police in both Butte and Yuba County searched the routes and all the areas out there, but there was no sign of them. Days later, in Plumas National Forest Ranger reported that they had spotted the Montego parked alongside of the road, but there was nobody in it.
So the car had wrappers and empty cartons and cans from their purchases after the game. However, the car was located 70 miles away from Chico, which is really far off of any route that they could have gone heading to Yuba City or Marysville.
Anybody who lived near the mountains or the coast already fucking know. And them being ex-military.
Yeah. And from what I understand, where they lived was, what'd they say, like 200 feet above sea level, and where they ended up was
So the area of Chico and all that is like the Oregon, California border. So it's like the coast. You got the coast and all that on this side, and then you got your mountains going up. So where they lived was like 200 feet of elevation. But then I think where the car was found was at like 4,000 feet or some shit like that. So even with us living out here in Colorado, we live at 6,000 feet and we own property at like 9,000 feet. So the temperature would drop, you know what I mean, like drastically.
Rapidly.
Even when you go to the top of Pikes Peak at 14,000 feet, it'll drop like 30, 40 degrees, you know what I mean?
Thinner.
So if you don't prepare for it, you're definitely going to be in for a shitty situation.
Yes. So nobody understood why the men would drive up a long dirt road to a much higher elevation without any supplies or extra clothing. Like out here, they tell you if you're driving anywhere,
You better keep a bug out bag in your car.
Yeah, keep a bug out bag. That way you've got food, you've got supplies, you've got warm clothes in case something does happen. Because if the weather gets too bad...
My car stay dirty, so I already got a bug out bag.
It's true. If the weather gets too bad...
I got kids and it was a work car, so...
But if the weather gets too bad and nobody can get to you, that way you're prepared. Mm-hmm. But since they didn't originally have any plans to go this way, obviously they didn't have any of this stuff with them.
Not to mention the young gentleman that was schizophrenic. He had to take his medication twice a day, and he didn't bring none of that with him. So he didn't even. So there was no plans of them to be gone long. Like after the game, their plan was to head home. So something in between the game or them stopping at the store where they were last seen, something happened. So, we'll get to all the theories later.
So several of the parents also said that the boys didn't like cold weather and didn't really like the outdoors. So it's not like they're like, oh, let's go on an adventure. So it was kind of odd.
And they refer to them as, I mean, they were all grown men, but the parents referred to them as boys just because, I mean, I got boys. I don't care how old they are. They always going to be my boys. You know what I mean? My dad says the same thing. You know what I mean? So, and then with them being... mentally challenged, you know what I mean? So I guess that played a part in it because a lot of them had younger mindsets, I believe. So it was, you know what I mean? 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 So they had reached the elevation of 4,400 feet above sea level, which is rookie numbers. Y'all got to pump those up. No, I'm just playing. So then that's where the snow line was. Like if you're... Snow line, if y'all don't know what it is, when you're driving, like if you look at where our mountains are, as you're driving up, you can literally see where the tundra changes. You know what I mean? So where all the trees basically die off and all the snow, and it's just nothing. Ignorant neighbors. And all the snow just starts piling up and stuff like that. So the car was believed to be stuck inside in the snowdrift, but it looked like they tried to drive out a little bit, and then the car was just completely left there, and it could have, from what the police said, it could have easily been pushed by the 5 men. It wasn't like completely stuck in the snow like we were.
I was just about to say it wasn't stuck like we were in our land.
Not my fault, by the way. Just saying.
Anyway.
So the keys were gone. I believe one of the back windows was down. The cops hot-wired it, and it started right up, so they knew the car didn't die. So when they found the car, the window was supposedly down. The keys, one of the back windows, the keys were gone, but the car had about a quarter tank of gas in it. The ignition, when they hot-wired it, the car fired right up, so they knew it could be pushed. I mean, they knew it could have been started, so it wasn't like it died or anything on them. They didn't have any damage to the vehicle, so the police said whoever drove this vehicle up this road must have either had precision driving and they were paying extremely attention, or they knew the road like the back of their hand. Because there's no way that car would have made it that far without having any mud on it. Like, it was clean, like it was, you know what I mean?
So, and the boys were not familiar with the road, so it's not like they knew their way up there and could drive carefully.
And they did not like the cold. They was not. Yeah, they already said that they went with the shits.
So Madruga's family also said he would never let somebody else drive his car. So that part wasn't adding up either, because he didn't know the road, but there's no way that he lets like somebody that had more experience with the area drive his car. So the condition of the car was odd.
Man, I'm not even gonna lie. I looked up the car. Hold on, not to cut you off. I looked up that car when after we were researching it just to see what it looked like, and man, that shit clean. And I looked up the price on those, and I said, never mind.
So like he said, the car was unlocked and had a window down, and the parents thought it was really unusual for them to leave the vehicle unsecured. But because this is in February and the weather in the mountains is bad, future search efforts had to be called off. They couldn't search because there were some storms coming in. And at that point, nothing had been found except for the car.
Now, Joseph, I'm going to say his name, last name correct, Scones, told the police that he had been driving up that same road the same night, and he ended up being stuck in the snow. Now, he had a Volkswagen, I believe, and he was driving up there to check the area. He had a cabin up there, and he wanted to make sure it wasn't all snowed in and everything. So, as he was going up there, he said he had a heart attack. So after he pulled over with the heart attack, and he was sitting there with the heater on, trying to stay warm, several hours went by, and he saw headlights coming up behind him, and then he saw a car parked with the headlights on, and a group of people. One was believed to be a woman with a baby.
So we read a couple of things that said that one of the guys may have had longer hair and could have just been holding something, and that's why the guy thought he saw a woman with a baby. Plus, he could have been...
I mean, I looked at the Mercury Montego. The car could probably fit 5 dudes, but the dudes in the back are going to be tight. I doubt they getting another person in there.
And plus, he was a little delirious because he was having a heart attack. So he saw them and he called out for help, and when he called out for help, they got quiet and turned their headlights out.
Oh shit,
So
somebody hears.
So later on, he saw flashlights behind him, and he called out for help, and they went out too. And the
He
people got
heard
quiet.
whistling.
Yes.
He heard whistling. That's what it was. After he saw the headlights like in front of him, where he thought he saw the baby, he ended up getting back in the car because he said help and nobody was coming. So he got back in the car and laid back down, and then he started hearing whistling. So as he heard the whistling, he started looking around, and then he saw flashlights coming up on the car. He started yelling help again. The flashlights went away, and then I believe a car drove by him.
So his car ran out of gas early in the morning, and he walked 8 miles down the road to a lodge after he just had a heart attack, where the man working there drove him back home.
He did, but he did say when he walked past the car, after he got out of his car and he started walking, he walked past the Mercury Montego.
Yeah.
And it was empty and nobody was in it.
Yeah. So, and then also a doctor did confirm that he had a mild heart attack.
2 days after the guys were reported disappeared, a woman who worked at a small store in Brownsville, which was about 30 miles from where the car was located, she said 4 of them had stopped in the store in a red pickup truck, which kind of sounds familiar, you know what I mean? The dude who's had a heart attack, he did say he saw a red truck. He's not a red truck, but he saw a truck drive past him while he was sitting over there with a heart attack. So, I mean, it could be true, but her story was also corroborated by the store owner. She said 2 of the men, Hewitt and Sterling, were in the phone booth, and then the other 2 men came into the store, and the police considered her to be credible. Now, I'm not entirely 100% sure if it was the exact dudes, you know what I mean?
So they identified them based on the description the lady gave. So obviously she didn't know who they were, but once the missing posters went up, she gave the descriptions of who came inside, and the police matched it. On June 4th, a couple months later, after most of the snow had melted, a group of motorcyclists went out to a trailer that they owned at a campsite that was about 19.5 miles from where the Montego had been found. They stumbled upon this trailer, and the front window of the trailer was broken, and Wire's body was found decaying inside. So he was laying on a bed in the trailer with 8 sheets wrapped around him, including around his head. He had died from a combination of starvation and hypothermia. He originally weighed around 200 pounds, and when he was found, he weighed about 100 pounds. And the growth on his beard indicated that he had been alive for up to 13 weeks after they went missing. His feet were badly frostbitten, and on the table next to him was his wallet with the cash still inside, a ring that had his name inscribed on it, and a gold necklace. There was also a gold watch there that was missing a crystal, but it didn't belong to any of the boys, so nobody knows whose that was.
So the next day, Madruga and Sterling's remains were found about 11 miles away from where the car was on the opposite side. Madruga's body was partially consumed by animals. Only Sterling's bones remained scattered all over. Both had died of hypothermia. 2 days later, Hewitt's father found his son's backbone 2 miles northeast of the trailer. Now, clothing nearby helped ID most of the boys. The sheriff found the skull downhill, which confirmed the dental records. And his cause of death was also hypothermia. And Hewitt's dad was the one who found his son's backbone. And the main thing he was looking for was his son's glasses, because he knew no animal would eat it. Would eat anything plastic or anything like that. So that's what he was searching for. And a lot of the police and sheriffs were trying to keep him away from the search to prevent him from finding any remains of his son.
God. And of course he's the one to find the backbone. Jesus. So Matthias had never been found, and because he had not been on his medication, his picture was distributed to all the mental institutions in the surrounding areas, but he's still never been found or identified. There was some weird things that didn't add up about this story. No fire was set in the fireplace, even though there were matches and like paperback books and paper in the trailer that could have started a fire to keep them warm.
And the Mexican foods were like
freeze dried.
they were like MREs, which are they're military ready to eat.
Yeah.
They're ready to eat, meals ready to eat, but they were for like the military and stuff like that. But they were like Mexican food, so they were. All you had to do was just like heat them up or just add water to them, and you can just eat them.
There was heavy clothing in the trailer that they could have worn, but none of it was ever used. Sea ration cans had been opened and consumed, but a locker in the same shed that they got that out of had enough dehydrated foods, what he was talking about, to keep all 5 men fed and alive for over a year. And nothing in there had been opened.
No propane tanks either. There were propane tanks found on the side of it. It looked like a one of those little tiny homes. Basically, it was kind of like one of those. You know what I mean? But it was on wheels, so it was like a little mini trailer or whatever. And they had propane tanks hooked up to it, so they could have had heat in there. All they had to do was go out there and turn it on, and nothing in there was out of place. Nothing was touched. So all 5 men, and some of them were ex-military. Regardless of the mental disabilities or not, they still got that basic training in them. So for them not to take advantage of that and use it, something don't add up to me about this shit. Like dead ass. Like I was looking this shit up and something happened. But with the what's his name? Matthias?
Yeah.
So with Matthias being schizophrenic and him not having his medication, something could have, I don't know what led him up there, but he could have went off his meds and could have went off the deep end, and something could have happened and freaked everybody out, and that could have led to everything happening. And none of them liked the snow. One of them used to camp up there with his family, but he hated it. You know what I mean? When he went on the fishing trip with his dad and stuff, he didn't enjoy it. So every time the family went, he never went. He stayed home. So he wouldn't, and the place that he went was like 20 miles from where they were.
Yeah.
So none of that makes sense. Why would any of them be going 4,000 feet higher than where they are? And about, from what I Googled it, it was like an hour.
70 miles.
Yeah, it was about an hour. So if it was about from like here to Denver.
Yeah.
So this, back to the sea rations, the MREs and all that. They had been opened with the P38 can opener, which Matthias and Madruger both were familiar with due to them having the military experience. That goes back to what I'm saying. If y'all already knew about those, come on. Y'all are using y'all's common sense. You know what I mean? But
it's fishy.
Let me know what y'all think. So they all think Matthias took Wire's shoes because his feet could have been swollen from frostbite. Again, Matthias never was found. The investigators couldn't explain what happened. There were no explanations to why they were there, who wrapped all that stuff around his body when he died. Maybe he knew, and he wrapped all those blankets and stuff around him. The ring, they never knew who that belonged to, which, granted, that was back in the day, so they couldn't really run, like, DNA or fingerprints and stuff like that. One thing I was wondering, why were all the bodies so far apart?
If maybe he died in the trailer and they walked off.
And just died one by one?
Mm-hmm. Well, they said that they thought the 2 that were found close by both succumbed to frostbite there.
So maybe, what I think, the first one died, they found the trailer, so they put him there. And then as they all started going off, the other two died next. And they were probably all looking for Matthias because if he had a mental break, he could have dipped and ran. You know what I mean? And he could have been succumbed to the wilderness. I mean, like, when I looked this up, bro, it's a huge area of nothing but wilderness.
And there's a lot of times where people go missing in national parks and their remains are never found.
Mountain lions.
It's just so much ground to cover that it's
mountain lions.
impossible.
Mountain lions can snatch you up without you. They could be stalking you and you don't even pay attention to it. And they'll be in the winter. They'll be in the winter. You know what I mean? Summer. They'll be in the spring. They catch you lacking. They're gonna catch you lacking, and they're gonna be snacking. Oh my God. I'm just saying. And you're not gonna know because they'll snatch you up, put you in a tree. They can eat you. You know what I mean? They're gonna devour everything, and then you got coyotes who are gonna come and eat the scraps. You got vultures. You know what I mean? I've seen all that out here.
So the 4 were found dead, and Matthias is never found. Still to this day, I think at this point, with this was in the 70s. They assume that he's dead at this point, obviously. He could have had a break. He could have just completely disappeared. He could have succumbed to the elements. And unfortunately, nobody's ever going to know because he'll probably never be found. So 4 of the 5 families got closure from the situation. Matthias' family never got any closure from this since he was never found. And there's still so many unanswered questions that everybody has about why they were up there, how they got up there, how all of this happened. So unfortunately, there will probably never be any closure for the families when it comes to that. And
the world may never know.
It's just a huge mystery, like a lot of these national park cases are, unfortunately. So let us know what you think and what you think happened to Matthias, or all of them. Leave us a comment below, like, and subscribe so you get updated with our
Hit the little bell
videos.
button up there in the corner, too. Oh,
Yes.
my bad. Hit the little bell button up there in the corner. You know what I mean? So that way y'all can get all the updates when we post new content. You know what I mean? And if y'all got any ideas or stuff y'all want us to look up and talk about, just let us know in the comments. Y'all can hit us up at our Instagram. It's the same thing, Unsolved Enigma. We also have a Twitter, too. Y'all can check that out as well. Thank y'all again for watching us. We really do appreciate it. We don't just do this for us. We do this for y'all too as well. We know with all the pandemic stuff going on, everybody needs a little fun and hobby and stuff. So thank y'all again. We really appreciate it. Check us out again, and deuces.
Stay safe.